Those 102 that are in fiscal year 12 now, next year, when fiscal year 12 is the current year, it'll get down into the 10 to 15 district range, hopefully. But again, since we don't know really what the governor's proposal or what the new budget is going to be, this is a budget year. It will come out on June 30th of this year. We don't know where it's at. And I'm thinking that a lot of treasurers probably put in there, projected a high number of reductions. So if they put in a 20% reduction of state aid, that could have put them down, for example, or put them into the red category right here. So what are we doing about this? We continue to monitor those districts. We try to stay updated on them. We know that a lot of times from one year to the next, a lot of those reductions are made, and that a lot of districts eliminate those deficits before they get there, as they are required by law to do that. We have a lot of personal contact with districts very similar to this. I probably am on the road 25, 30 nights a year talking to different groups similar to this, boards of education, etc., trying to help everybody understand what the situation is. We do financial analysis and forecast reviews. That again is the process that Neil went over. We also do some presentations with the Ohio school boards, school business officials, treasurers clinics, and again like tonight. Now, some of the questions I usually get asked, I'm going to save you all the experience of asking some of these questions here, but can a district end up in fiscal emergency without a large deficit? And the answer is yes, they can. Specifically, when they fail to give us an acceptable recovery plan, or when they do not follow the recovery plan that they have been given to, that has been approved. The average length of time between fiscal caution and emergency, really that varies quite a bit. Some districts never, once they get in fiscal caution, they solve their problems. They get either levy approved, they make enough reductions, because really that's all you can do. You increase your revenue, you decrease your expenditures. A combination of both. It's just no different from your home budgets. That's about all you can do. And many districts will do that. Others go into it almost right away. We've had several school districts where treasurer has left, and oh, by the way, the forecast is not accurate. And when we had one that was showing a $250,000 deficit, it actually was closer to $2 million. That district had to go into emergency almost right away. And it's, again, most districts are able to prevent fiscal emergency with our guidance. Now, I mentioned earlier that we had 10 districts currently in fiscal emergency. Since this law has been put into place in 96, 97, there have been 35 districts that have had to go into fiscal emergency. And if we have 10 today, that means 25 of them have been in emergency and released. So again, we feel, I don't know if I want to say confident, but at least I think that the process that we have in place kind of works for most districts. Is it ever smooth? No, it is not. And every district is a little bit different. And I can assure you it just does get very ugly when a district goes into fiscal emergency, because it really pits the community against one another. It pits families against one another too often. What can a district do to prevent emergency? As you well know, increase revenues, decrease expenditures. Can an excellent or effective rated district be declared in fiscal emergency? Yes, because that's completely separate. And the average length of time a district remains in emergency is 3 years. And again, keep in mind my scenario a little bit ago. If a district is $1.1 million in deficit, they're going to get solvency assistance for that to cover their obligations. But then for the next 2 years, they're going to get less money from the state foundation. By the time that they have repaid that state money over 2 years, the third year they start collecting their full amount, and they most of the times have learned to live on that lesser amount or had a levy approved in order to help them out. And then that's when the recovery really gets going, and that's the reason that 3 years is pretty much the average length of time. So that's it for the presentation. Start up here at the front with questions.
Thank you very much. You did a very nice job of explaining it. I've talked to one district that currently is in fiscal emergency, and they said one of the biggest problems was their community thought that when they got to fiscal emergency, the state was going to swoop in and make it all better. and they failed a levy in November, and just because of the money that they've had to borrow, their next levy has to be 3 mils higher.
Well, we swooped in okay. Resolving the issue and bringing in a pot of money is not part of it. Bringing in money, because we don't. The only money that is accessible to a district once they go into emergency is the solvency assistance, which you then will be withheld from your foundation for 2 years. And so what does that really mean? That means that if you're in a deficit right now, and you're going to get less money in the next 2 years, what is that going to do to your deficit? That's going to increase it. The hole's going to get bigger. So as you said, once you have a levy out there and you fail it in November, that puts you off 1 full year of collecting any new money, so that the hole gets bigger and bigger. The deficit gets bigger and bigger. And what it causes is to have a larger levy request the next time out. You may ask for a 7 mil operating levy of property tax. If it fails, that deficit gets larger the next year, and then you have to come back for 10 mils. And if that fails within that year's time, then again the deficit is even larger the next year. We may be talking 15 mils. Good point. Thank you. Questions out here from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Where are we currently in the, are we in any fiscal situation?
No, you're not in fiscal oversight at this time. And again, why we're here this evening is to explain what Niels did with the financial analysis, to confirm, you have a deficit here in fiscal year 13, which is 2 years from now. Next year, you're down very close to not being able to meet your financial obligations.
And then if we have a levy that does pass, what will that do for us? Will it take us out of that?
That would be good news, yes. You could get rid of us. I don't know, I think we're nice guys though, Neil, I don't know. What that would do, if you do have a levy approved, you increase your revenue. And so that $1.1 million deficit 2 years out probably won't be there. And keep in mind too that your new money that you bring in this year, it accumulates pretty quick. It compounds year after year, the same as your deficit does. So if you're showing, if you reduce 100,000 this year, it adds up to 200 the following year, 300 a year after that, same as your deficit. If you have a deficit for the end of this year, and many districts that have a small deficit will get with a county auditor, and they will get an advance of their taxes for the following year to pay off your obligations in the end of June. So let's think about that for a minute. If you're getting an advance from the county auditor in June of 2011, you're getting 2012 tax revenue. So what does that do? That puts you behind the 8 ball then for 2012. It's kind of like taking a credit card out to paying off another credit card. And I don't think it takes very much sense or an understanding to realize that's a problem. You can do that once in a while, on occasion, if you have some specifics. Specifically, if you have 3 pay periods in July, and the first one is on July the 2nd, and you're carrying over $84,000, you've got $200,000 obligation. The district has to do something to get money to meet that obligation. And many times they get an advance from the auditor. Sometimes we'll take what's called a TAN, a tax anticipation note, that a district can get a short-term loan, from a bank, but then they pay interest on that, in order to cover their obligations until they get their tax revenue starts coming in. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you had a question. It's kind of like an auction here. You raise your hand, you're going to get.
You said that we were about 72% of our budget goes to salaries.
The question was, that your district is about 72%, and that's what we come up with, yes.
Is that an exorbitant number? Is that better
No.
than average, lower than average? Where do we fall compared to
I'm going to say that's possibly a little bit lower than average. If any district, and Neil can back me up on this, around 80%. If you get over 80%, you're going to be in trouble.